piece is made out of ceramics, and I'm using a manganese glaze that the thicker you get it, the more gold it becomes. The inspiration comes from the terracotta soldiers that were uncovered in China. The back portion of the sculpture really shows you the influence that I got from the terracotta soldiers and the look of their armor. So they have to do with being a guardian and being just a protector of the garden.
The whole top are Maloof cut-off. So you don't know who was working on them. It could have been Larry White, it could have been Dave, it could have been Mike, or Sam, whose negative pieces. They were big, beautiful Maloof pieces, sorting out all these pieces, and then I saw the chair base we had saved. So that's what I did, is I took the old chair base, turned it upside down, but I liked the idea that you don't know whose cut-offs they were, who was actually doing the work.
So they're hand-built in sections, and this guy has about 400 pinch pots added to the surface of the piece. They are underglazed with these vibrant velvet underglazes and fired to about cone 3, so they have been through the kiln twice. They're a metaphor for both human sexuality and a play on biomorphic tendencies, and definitely speaks to the laws of attraction. It should hopefully be a look of interest between the two of them.
The piece is aluminum, powder-coated aluminum, and wood that's been painted with enamel. The base is also powder-coated aluminum, wood, enamel. I grew up in Los Angeles in the 50s. All the car shows I went to, all the cars were candy apple reds and all these beautiful pearlescent and metallic colors. The first car I owned, I had it painted kind of an iridescent green. And some of the other cars after that had these great colors on them. This is a candy tangerine up on top. So I've been in love with color, bright color, for probably my whole life. All of my sculptures have bright, colorful elements, and they work great in these outdoor environments where they just sort of pop out, hopefully a little surprisingly, as you walk up on it.
We weren't sure exactly what we were going to do, but after coming here and seeing all the different varieties of trees, and during fall there are so many different colors on the grounds of just different types of leaves, I guess. So we collected some of the leaves during the fall. We decided to cast them in glass so we could kind of eternalize them. So it's almost like a forever fall.
It's called a pâte d'oeuvre technique, which is basically working with the glass powder. We mix a clear powder and a color glass, and the glass melts and it sort of fills it into the mold. So after we take it back into the mold and slump it onto the balls or different shapes so that it gives the curl to the leaves.
Hiromi Takizawa made these bell jars to protect the leaves from the elements.
We start the bell jar part going to glass blowing studio, and we literally work with the 2000-degree melted glass, and it's almost working like a honey. While it's hot, we shape it into a dome shape. And then after that, we cold work and polish, and that's how it comes to life.
This piece is one whole piece that's all solid, and it has to be fused in order to stay together. The glass were window glass cut into little triangles. I have a lot of little pieces put into the kiln and fused together. I love working with glass. I like the way the light gets reflected from it, and it has a sparkle just like icicles.
My brain works in funny ways, and I just thought this would be a really entertaining piece to put together. So you can see the lady at the top waving to her boyfriend down here at the bottom, and he's surrounded by suitcases, and I imagine she has at least one more up there he's going to be crawling up the ladder for. So it's just a whimsical piece, and that's what I like doing the most, is whimsical pieces. I've been a metal sculptor for about 55 years, And a lot of my pieces are large pieces, such as this one.
Certainly there were challenges to making the piece. It's cast concrete. It looks very traditional. So the title of the piece is Separate. I've done a series of poems, and this is one of the sculptures that's connected to those. It's actually letter pressed into the concrete here on the pedestal, and then made a mold out of that, and then cast that in the concrete. The poem's actually included in the catalog so that people could sort of see that and read that and help contextualize the piece that way. Is there a way to part the tumultuous cloud that darkens the day? That's really what this piece is about, which is why you see him kind of renting his cloth there at the top, even though it's concrete.
I was inspired by mammoth bone cave dwellings from the last ice age that actually the bones from mammoths were left that humans actually got to use to make dwellings out of, which I always thought was pretty cool. And then it got me thinking about what would it be like if after we're extinct, things we left behind get to be used by some future species. The bottom is welded steel. The femur from cows have been cut in half, drilled out, and threaded on like beads, basically, onto the welded steel. And this is resin clay. It's a 2-part epoxy compound that I use that you get about a 2-hour working window. You have to mix it up in small batches and apply it and tool it. And in the back, these are all coyote, I believe, or deer jaws. They're what inspired me to end up with a reliquary of this kind of cathedral effect. These are scapula coming down the back that you can see the sunlight coming through right now. There are raccoon skulls, there are squirrel bones on up the food chain. So there's a little bit of the food chain going on in this piece.
The inspiration for the piece comes from a series of pieces that I've done on the African American aesthetic, which draws itself from the Middle Passage, the slavery time, through the development of the African American culture through the history of America. So these symbols represent Fang and Dogon figures that I have personally claimed to add to that African American aesthetic. The round thing in the middle is a seed. It represents a new possibility. And the chains are like standard equipment, but it comes out of that horrific point of history to a growth point. Here I'm working at the base with metal tubing, like pipes for sending oil through and things like that. The one thing about my work is that I try to engineer all these things to blend together so you can have this large growth of sculpture out of a base like this. And so as you move up the tree, I get a chance to go back to my roots. And this is a wonderful log that was on my doorstep maybe 10 years ago, and I carved this out with a special carving chainsaw. We have adopted Adinkra symbols to represent our culture. The one at the very top, let's say that one represents the omnipotence of God. Matter of fact, that symbol was cut out of the base of the piece. The universe is in circular patterns anyway, and so you get a lot of circular patterns that are planetary, gravity, all these things are ovals and circles, and so you see a lot of that in my work.
The piece is actually made on a big sheet of styrofoam where I made a very large drawing of this female anatomic figure. This shape came literally out of this shape. So this was all part of this one drawing. I saw it as a birth coming from the loins of this shape. And then this birth gave birth to another shape which started growing up. So eventually these abstracted bodily forms became their own thing. Part of what's important to me is that I show the whole process of how it's made. So you literally see the styrofoam with all its texture. I chose to make on the front parts the epoxy transparent to show the process of how these pieces are made, and you actually see the texture of the styrofoam. Yeah, that's, I guess, what I can say about the pieces.
I do a lot of art with a military theme, like tanks and some guns and stuff. So I wanted to do something that kind of goes with the military theme that I do. So I made this grenade, but I didn't want it to be just a metal replica. I wanted something different. So I decided to wrap it in this blue fur. And what the blue fur does is it makes it huggable and less threatening. The underbody is made out of plywood. So a lot of cutting and gluing and nailing. Took quite a few days to make. It's synthetic fur, so it doesn't shrink or anything, and it's holding up nicely. This is a pin. It actually does come out just like a real grenade. You would pull the pin out, and we all know what happens then.